This is the Final Word Daily, India, Australia at Indore Stadium, the third test match of the Border-Gavaskar series. Geoff Lemon, Adam Collins, and our first job is for Adam to tell you about the 88 overs that happened today in the space of 30 seconds.
The first thing I'll do is I'll tell you the show. So visit Victoria and visit Melbourne.com. We'll tell you more about them in the middle of the show around the Hall of Fame. 30 seconds, India win the toss and bat. Rohit Sharma was out twice in the first over of the test match. They didn't review either of them. Thankfully, Matt Kooneman did him with a masterful piece of flight to complete his first over. Rohit gone for 12, a brisk partnership of 27, which belied what happened for the rest of the Indian innings. All that for 109. A collapse in the middle, which was worth about 5 for 10 or thereabouts. Only Kohli looked at ease against the turning ball. Lyon takes 3, Kooneman his first 5-wicket bag for Australia. In reply, heads out early, caught on the crease by Jadeja. An outstanding partnership between Khawaja and Labuschagne, putting on 96, getting them to parity. But after that, they lose Khawaja, Labuschagne and Smith in the final 45 minutes of play, which means they have a lead of 47, but they're not out of the woods yet.
34 seconds, pretty good. Pretty good.
In the context of the day.
In the context
of the day, I reckon I've done well. Okay. Usually on day one, it's like, oh yeah, Australia won the toss and batted. They're 3 for 100. Yeah, they're 3 for 297. Labuschagne's batted splendidly. He's on 120.
Yep.
Yeah, 14 wickets. It could have been 24.
Could have been 24.
Could have been 24.
And if you get an allowance of 3 minutes per wicket on your over rates, then maybe you should get an allowance of like 3 seconds per wicket on your 30-second summary. But that's not how it works. So the script was flipped. We talked about script flipping. The Australians talked about script flipping, flippity scribbling. You've got to flip the scripts, and that's what they did. It's been all about the Indian spinners rolling through Australia in no time. This time it was about Australian spinners rolling through India in no time, 109. And it started, I mean, there was that feeling at the start of like, this could be a really, really bad day for Australia, because Mitchell Starc comes on, bowls beautifully, nicks Rohit Sharma off, pins him LBW, neither of them are given out, neither of them are sent upstairs. And fair enough, by the way, before anybody piles in on A, the umpire, and B, the Australians for being shit at decision making and shit at reviewing, the first one, it looked like daylight on the replay. There was no deviation of the ball. There was the tiniest feather on the bat.
It was the noise, I reckon. I was on commentary at the time and I called it as out because of the noise. So usually that's enough to persuade a cordon to go because of the way Snicko works. But And usually Smith's a compulsive reviewer. Let's remember how he used to marshal that particular part of his game as full-time skipper. I was surprised he didn't go, and I reckon because the first one didn't go, he was reluctant to chase his losses by going up the second time. You know how it can affect, one can affect the next.
But there's also the stump mark is much closer to the snick than the cordon is.
True.
And it's noisy out there, the crowd's going, they had a really good turnout in today, and they were very, very noisy, especially in that first over. So I thought it was understandable. Nobody on the field thought that it was out live, is the key point
right,
here.
Yeah.
So it's pretty unreasonable to say that, they all should have known just because you've watched the slow motion replay back again and you happen to know on your couch that it was out. The LBW hit him above the knee roll, looked high. It's just that this pitch had no bounce in it, and so it would have hit the top of the stumps. But if Mitchell Starc hits you that high in his first over with a new ball, reasonably an umpire says that's probably going over.
The body language of Andrew McDonald, though, when the second one, we see the first one caught behind. Yeah. When it's like another one, the look in McDonald's eyes with the hand over the face. Then there was a ball that didn't carry through to the keeper. I think in over 3 of the test.
There was one that got edged to slip, didn't it, in front of Smith to slip.
The most noticeable one was the one that pretty much rolled to Carey. And yes, that did give them a moment of, gee, God knows what's going to happen with this surface. But also, we've seen balls bounce twice before reaching the keeper on the MCG a few years ago, and that meant for 2 dreadful days in the dirt. So at that stage, it can go either way, especially given how well Gill started.
And that's the kind of way that luck can turn, right? Like if you have your couple of chances, you don't take them. Shubman Gill comes out, bangs 4 through cover, another one, hits 3 boundaries in no time, he's quickly past 20, and it can just slide away from a team in no time at all. And then it just goes drastically in the other direction. Suddenly everything flips the other way. So Matt Kooneman gets one to spin past Rohit Sharma, who comes down to clobber it over long on. And he was so close to the pitch of that ball, and it turned so sharply that it still beat the edge. He gets stumped. Carey gets his second stumping in as many matches after not getting one in the entire career up until this point. And suddenly, the Australians are into them.
I just want to back over the Rohit dismissal. We're talking a lot about the first half an hour of play, but it felt instrumental.
Oh, yeah.
The Kooneman over, he had Rohit sweeping, he beat him for pace, then last ball of the over, he gives it more flight, slows it down. That was a Jadeja delivery from a bloke playing his second test match who couldn't have really thought he'd be any chance of playing test cricket 3 weeks ago when he was playing in the Sheffield Shield before he was called up for the second test. It takes guts and skill to execute that. It was perfect. And yeah, it's the right it's luck to the extent to which that's the ball Rowett comes down the track at him. But nevertheless, you've got to give it a chance. You've got to give yourself a chance as a spinner. And credit to Carey. He takes that high in the right webbing. Doesn't glove that. Can be a very different game. We saw how hard it was to keep today. KS Barat took a great catch at the end of the day to remove Steve Smith, but generally speaking, he battled, and he's been the more impressive of the two stumpers in the series. And that's no slight on Carey, just simply that Barat's looked outstanding. So Carey, who's I suppose falls into the tradition of Australian wicketkeepers who are thought of as batters first, probably, given that's the way he got himself into the side with runs, not so much with exploits with the gloves. He's not one of these sort of novelty keepers who, executes a stumping standing on his head, Sarah Taylor, Jack Russell-esque. He's more a batter who can keep. And to take that stumping, to get Kooneman's confidence up, Kooneman gets a second wicket, then the pitch starts really going through the surface. I don't like that quite so much, I must say.
I want to see him keep like Sarah Connor, not like Sarah Taylor.
Yes.
I want him to flip his hospital bed up on its side and do chin-ups until he's jacked. I want him to get a hunting knife and carve no fate into a wooden picnic table. That's how I want to see Alex Carey keep. That's playing with a hard edge, Australians.
I just want to, for the sake of consistency, I've been critical of pitches when they're exploding through the surface on morning one.
Yes.
I think that's when it becomes a lottery. I didn't like that today. I just think that, I don't mind turning pitches. I love turning pitches. I love exciting cricket in India, all of that. It's not a reflection on that. But they've gotten this one wrong. They've overcooked this one. It was too dry, and it was turning just as prodigiously, and the dust was just as evident off the grassy bits of the pitch. We weren't just talking about the bits that you identified them rolling at the ends. This was short of a good length. It was still exploding. So the batters didn't have much of a chance, as evidenced by the Pujara dismissal. It turns square in lines. You're not meant to see spinners turning the ball like that in the first session of a test. That's almost overdoing it.
We might just have to wait, I think.
When must we lean into it? Your call. I suppose we've waited now, so we can. You'll have to do the edit anyway, so.
Yeah, it's just the siren, so it's fine. I'll edit it.
Do you want to wait till the other bus goes? Assuming.
I think the other one's gone, isn't it? The other one went out already.
Okay.
Sorry, where were we at? Exploding.
I just finished talking about the exploding pitch.
Yeah. And it was still exploding by the end of the day as well. There was the ball that Jadeja bowled to Khawaja that went over Khawaja's shoulder and was sort of taken by the keeper somewhere up around here in the top right of frame. So, there is that point where if skill is not the predominant part of the equation in your survival out there, and it becomes more about luck. But we did see skill from Usman Khawaja. But we'll come back to that in a second. Yeah, the Pujara one pretty much crawls along the floor. By that point, Gill gets caught at slip by Steve Smith, catch number 153 for him. He's sneaking up on Ellen Border 156 and Mark Taylor 157 in terms of career catches for Australia. And so Kooneman's got a couple, then Lyon gets his first, Lyon gets his second. Kooneman gets his third. I mean, there's that.
Shreyas plays a dog of a shot.
Yeah, there's that sloppy pull shot that goes to sort of straight mid-wicket, short mid-wicket, or short straight mid-wicket, both of those things. And then Murphy gets in the book. He only gets one wicket, but it is Kohli, and Kohli's the one who's handling the conditions best of all. And Murphy, from around the wicket, floats it in, does him in the air. It turns back, but it doesn't turn back dead straight, which Kohli's playing for. It turns a little further, so it hits him. It looks like it's heading for middle, but it ends up hitting off stump because of that bit of turn.
It's just where Murphy's a different bowler to Lyon. Yeah. So Kohli batted exquisitely for 22. He top scored, but on a different day, we're having a conversation for a quarter of an hour about a Kohli 100 against the odds type of thing. It took something pretty special from Murphy to, as you say, straighten not quite so much. And this all comes back to the fact that Murphy has the ability to slide it across the right-hander, and they are timid about playing him as a consequence of that. They're not as happy to get kind of playing from the line, expecting it to spin, because if it doesn't spin, they're in trouble outside the off stump. Kind of the same problem that many sides have got into against Ashwin across the journey. So, I think that's a wicket partly born of the work at Nagpur and what we saw early from Murphy today. He landed it from the first ball he bowled was spot on. So, only one wicket, but it's the Kohli moment, and the Kohli moment always means so much.
And then you come down to because Jadeja's been out quickly with that pull shot, but it comes down to the Akshar Patel, Ravichandran Ashwin thing, and finally they can't dig India out of a hole with the bat. They've done it. So 5 of India's top 6 partnerships in this series have involved one or both of the three spinners. So there was that one between Rohit Sharma and KL Rahul where they made 120 odd in the second innings at Nagpur where they were well ahead of the game. Aside from that, the next 5 most prolific innings in the series have either been both spinners or one spinner with somebody else. They have done the job, but it ended up being too hard as Kooneman grabbed a couple more. 5 for 16, the cheapest 5 for a Bayan Australian in India after Michael Clark 6 for 9.
They're a beautiful set of numbers. I reckon when they came back out after lunch, it's 7 for 84, but it's Ashwin and Akshar, and the 8th wicket partnership's been such a bugbear. Remember, they had them 7 for 139 last week at Delhi, and they got away from them, and that Test match turned accordingly. So I reckon Australians were still thinking, we've got to really finish this well, and Kooneman did. To find the edge of Ashwin with another delightful delivery, similar to the ball that he bowled to Rohit Sharma. Getting assistance from the pitch, but got to give it a chance. And then going through Umesh Yadav on the arm, not before Umesh, who I'll come back to in the Hall of Fame, hit a couple of big sixes, and then Akshar's left not out on 12 and never really took the long handle because he never really had the chance.
Right, yeah, I mean, that opportunity didn't come up. Umesh Yadav only knows one way to play, and he did have the ball turning into him rather than Kooneman turning it away. But in the end, he's one of the most stone-dead LBWs you've ever seen.
I thought they were going to review it for a sec. I said on commentary, they'll review it.
Yeah.
They really can't review it, but they might have to.
Rarely do you see a team for the 9th wicket, they're 8 down and it's an LBW and they have reviews in hand and they're like, nah, don't bother.
Can't justify it.
Don't bother. I'm just going to walk straight off.
I'm wasting it's like the teacher getting angry at you.
You're wasting your time, you're wasting my time, you're wasting everybody in the class's time. And then, Siraj not being a bit dozy and not racing back for the second when Akshar called him through. So Akshar Patel, 12 not out, helps his average. Why not? Why not give him a little boost?
Leading run scorer in the series and all that.
And then 109 all out. But I think even then, there's a point for if you've been watching Australia through this series where you think, well, if India got out for 109, will Australia be out for 72?
I genuinely thought I'd see Rohit Sharma bat a second time today.
Yeah.
And especially
that wasn't
after,
beyond the pale.
Well, Head gets out for 9,
Yeah.
caught on the crease to Jadeja. He was furious. He was smashing the shit out of his pads on the way off the ground and punching his bat and all the rest of it because he knows that is the kind of the way he was getting out last year in Asia. That's a replica of that. Of course, Jadeja's different gravy, but nevertheless, it was frustrating for Head, who got off to a good start, hit a boundary and all the rest. And then I've got it in my book here, you'll see it, Geoff. Labuschagne bowled Jade. Then I've got a line through it. That's when it was seen that he'd overstepped, but
bowled by Jade.
Marnus, who was has that eagle on his bat, which in the Test documentary they attribute to the luck that he enjoys back to his religious faith and all the rest of it. Well, I'll put that to one side. This is a lucky man. He gets away with it. The third time in the series, Jadeja's taken a wicket that's been chalked off from overstepping. A bloke that has one step on the way in.
Well, exactly. That's the thing.
How?
And he's bowled a bunch of other no balls as well. I don't know how he does it, particularly when he pulls his foot back after landing. Maybe that's why. Maybe he looks down and sees that his heel's behind the line afterwards. But it's not when your toe hits the ground. So, I mean, extraordinary that Labuschagne's able to survive. He ends up making 31, puts on a partnership in 96 with Usman Khawaja. And, I mean, goodness me, Khawaja played so well. He didn't give a chance. He barely played a false shot. There was that one little squirt around the corner to a sort of leg slip where there was nobody standing. But there was barely even a false stroke in that innings. He got forward so well to defend. He went back. He didn't sweep much. He played a couple of reverses and nailed them. But that was when the line was right and the length was a little shorter and he was able to line up that ball properly. And for the most part, he was just patient. He picked them off. He faced, 180 odd deliveries, close to.
Yeah, it was well over 150. Just on, on the Khawaja decision-making process today. He said on telly after play that he didn't change the way that he played at Delhi, and maybe that is the case. But there'll be criticism that he's out to the sweep, I'm sure. But when he played the sweep, Usman Khawaja has rebuilt his game in Asia from sweeping. At one stage, after his twin tons against England last year at Sydney, he was averaging in the previous 12 calendar months 350 playing the sweep and the reverse sweep. I mean, this guy isn't going to stop sweeping just because last week Australia lost 6 batters that way in the second dig at Delhi. That's not realistic. But nevertheless, it always looks bad when you hole out for 60 because he's obviously so well set.
I don't think that point the criticism should be about the sweep, but it could be about why you're playing a lofted sweep when they have a deep mid-wicket out and there's half an hour to start.
And he hit a boundary like a couple of balls before. He was already headed in the count and the over, and they just gotten through that really tough period with Jadeja and Ashwin. I think Ashwin was out of the attack at the time off the field, and they got through a tough stretch after tea, and they put on 96. So it felt like they were on the cusp of batting through the day, and,
Right.
and that was the bit that changed it. But yeah, just on Khawaja, more generally, like, yeah, Smith and Labuschagne are Australia's 2 highest ranked batters and all the rest, and you know, they've got the most runs and so on. But Khawaja, when he's in, adds a degree of serenity and a degree of calm to proceedings that the other two can't. When he's in like that, it makes Labuschagne's eccentricities feel less problematic. It makes everything kind of just feel okay. Like there's a grown-up in the room, he's in the 22 yards that matter most, and everything will just be fine while Khawaja is there when he gets in. And he got in today, which meant that for that half an hour to tee, it looked like suddenly they were playing on a different pitch altogether.
Yeah, exactly that. There was still jeopardy. There was still that point of needing to work as hard as possible. But yeah, it's Khawaja getting out not that long after Labuschagne gets out. That opens it up again for India.
Labuschagne going back, getting bowled.
And then Smith out there with Hanscom batting and Jadeja gets Smith to edge away to edge behind just before the close of play. So, well, you know, a few overs before the close of play. Green and Hanscom get through without further problem. Hanscom looks really good as well. He's suddenly his ability to shift, like the depth in the crease you always talk about with Hanscom, but the way he gets so far out ahead of his ground while just keeping that back toe in, it gives him about 3 metres worth of reach that he's able to use to change the length of the bowling.
It looks like he's dancing, but he's not. It's a great observation. He does keep his foot planted. He must do a lot of yoga or whatever. In fact, I'm certain he does, because how could he be so flexible to meet the pitch of the ball like you're describing? And Green as well, you know, he swept his way to 77 at Galle last year, which proved defining for Australia. Didn't play that shot tonight. It was about his dancing, and that was another feature of the innings at Galle. So good early signs for Green, and a reminder of what they've lost in the first 2 Test matches, not having him batting there at number 6. And just on the Smith dismissal, you know, Jadeja didn't bowl as well today as he's bowled in previous innings through the series. He bowled a couple of poor spells, a couple of good spells, but you know, he just has a way of influencing games against Australia, and he's taken the first 4 wickets without even bowling the house down, 21 in the series. And Smith, just when he was set, he hit a boundary. I think he hit 3 boundaries in 2 overs, and he did nothing wrong. It was a lovely delivery that dipped on him, span prodigiously, puff of dust, and KS Barat, the most important part of the day for him, came in the last couple of overs, and credit to him for keeping his composure, because seeing the back of Smith at 26, knowing the way that Smith can turn Test matches just like this, I think we'll be talking about that dismissal again.
Yep, so that match so well poised. I mean, they could run through Australia tomorrow for another 20 runs, or Australia could go on and add another 100, you just don't know. At this point, it depends on how it plays in that first session, I suppose, whether it's harder to bat on as it seemed to be today. But let's come to the Hall of Fame. It is brought to you by visitmelbourne.com. That's the website if you want to visit Melbourne, where we're from. It is, I'm going to say, the best city in the world, because it's easy for me to say that.
I not only said that, I once had to front up on BBC World and explain why Melbourne. Back in 2012, when I was living in the UK, a friend of mine was a producer there. Melbourne, once again, was identified as the best city in the world.
Most livable city. Was that the title?
Most livable city. Yeah. It was my birthday, actually. I was quite hungover. So
it's not the cleanest city in India. Can't take that title. But
fabulous place of Indore. Love the ground here. And I got dragged into the studio, and they played me in to the Neighbours theme song. So I'm on the record as saying Melbourne's the best place in the world to live, although I don't live there anymore. It's a great place to grow up. I would love returning every year. Sporting capital of the world. Get yourself to Victoria, plan a trip around, watching a Test match, or maybe the Melbourne International Comedy Festival coming up in April, or maybe the footy finals or the Spring Carnival. There is so much sport to enjoy and love in Melbourne.
Right, so visit melbourne.com if you want to plan your Melbourne moment. Now, what did we have? Hall of Fame, one for me is that I just happened to work out today coincidentally, because I was looking at Tim Southee's 6 hitting. Umesh Yadav, of players who have hit more than 10 sixes in their careers, has the highest proportion of his career runs in sixes of anyone in Test history.
You've done me. I was going to do exactly the same thing, or maybe a little bit of nuance to this. I was going to say that when he walked out to bat today, I got this Umesh Yadav stat I like to bring up, that his percentage of sixes to fours.
Yep.
So he walked out today 22 sixes and 40 fours, and it's now 24 sixes and 41 fours. So he's put a gap in that, and he pulls level with Virat Kohli.
Put a gap in him.
Put a gap in him. Go, you good thing, go. If you know that reference and you're watching in India, you've been watching a lot of YouTube. Maybe you have. Fatso, the fat ass wombat. Google it. He's hit as many sixes in Test cricket as Kohli, who's got the better part of 10,000 runs.
Well, I mean, that means they're as good as each other.
Clearly.
Statistics do not lie.
Clearly, UMesh is as good as Kohli. Tell us about it in the comments.
So I'm also going to lodge Marnus Labuschagne here because we didn't touch on, like, yes, he was bowled off a no ball. He was also given not out to a plum LBW that India didn't review for some reason. 3 reds and all the rest didn't go upstairs. And then he nicked one into the keeper's pad that ballooned up over slip and wasn't caught. He continues to be the luckiest player in Test cricket, and despite 3 lives, they had to get him out 4 times in an innings of 31 runs, which ended up being a really important contribution.
Well, it was that kind of day. I want to give a nomination to Richard Kettlebrook. He spent more time talking on television today than I suspect some of the commentators did.
Yeah.
The amount of decisions that were sent his way, even 2 bowls. 2 bowls were sent.
Yeah, we should have put this one earlier.
And I think there was the Marnus Labuschagne. Oh no, it was going to be reviewed. Then it was an overstep from Jadeja, but I think they were looking to send that upstairs for the bowled as well.
Right, so yeah, the Shreyas Iyer one's a bottom edge and the ball just grazes the outside of off stump and the bail falls off after the event. So I think we're just getting some, we're getting a gas tanker pulling up behind us. This is good. So I think they weren't sure whether Alex Carey's gloves were in front of the stumps when the ball either hit the stumps or whether the gloves had knocked the bails off. In the end, the gloves were nowhere near it, but there was that check because they just weren't sure whether it had actually bowled him. My last Hall of Fame is the gentleman who just came out of the ground here in a ground entirely full of bright yellow and bright blue seats wearing his Parramatta Eels jersey, blue and yellow. Did he know?
Ted.
Did he know? Did he design his wardrobe with that in mind? Did he come by here yesterday and scope it out and think this is Eels territory?
He's not the only Parramatta. There's Pete here with Lukey Sparrow as well, who wears the Parramatta top every day. I saw him waving the flags as Australia hit a boundary this afternoon up on the TV screen. So and credit to those guys too on the way out. Like that hard yakka trying to rearrange a tour that was meant to be in Dharamshala today. They've worked hard to get here, and they've done a great job bringing a lot of people to Indore, and I'm really enjoying it here and looking forward to the next few days.
Right, that is enough from us. This has been the Final Word Daily. India, Australia, BGT, all the hashtags, all the rest of it. I don't know.
Visit Victoria.
Visit Melbourne. Follow the channel. Tell people about the show. If you really like the show, patreon.com/thefinalword. That's how we keep funding it and we keep making it. Aside from that, tune in tomorrow for the Final Word Daily, Day 2.
Good night.